the Zoom for her to watch, which is one of the beauties of Zoom. So 7:33, we've got everyone here except for Tom Wilson and Tim Martell. All right, let's just jump right into this. There she is. Hey, Claire. Can you hear us?
I can.
All right, so I just called the meeting to order at 7:33. Everybody's here except for Tom Wilson is not coming, Claire. I expect Tim to be here, but just a few minutes late. Okay. All right, so let's get the minutes out of the way and then we'll get into the meat of the matter. So let's start with September 15th. So great job, Claire. I've got a couple comments. Anybody having comments? I'll start with how I can see everybody on the screen. Eric?
No comments on this one.
AP? You are muted. No? Okay. Marcy? You're saying no? You're muted too.
It's not working. No comments on this.
Okay. Adam?
Yeah, Kathy, are these the 10-7 minutes that you're referring
No,
to?
we're starting with September 15th. We got two sets to do
September
tonight.
15th. Okay, I had no comments on those.
Okay, so Claire, my comments are truly just ministerial and really silly. So on line 13, at the end of that sentence, okay, so this will test the young versus the old on this meeting. So, you know, CC did used to stand for carbon copies, right? Years and years ago when we literally had carbon, you know, you put in the typewriter, you had carbon, but I've always been taught in the last, 20 years or so that CC is courtesy copy because we don't use carbon anymore. So Claire, I would change that to courtesy copy instead of carbon copy. So we act like we are in modern times here, you and I.
Okay.
Okay, unless you vehemently disagree with that one. Okay, the only other comment on this one would be on 55, and then you just didn't mean what you said. So at the very end of that sentence, you just want to say closing one of the K through 8 schools, not one of the K through 3 schools. That's it.
Okay.
Okay. All right, let's go on to October 7th. So anybody have, so I'm just going to, rather than just go around the room to make this faster, anyone have a comment on the 7th?
I had a small comment, which could be my memory. 183. AN stated that the goal was to revitalize downtown. What does multifamily add to that goal? Mimi addressed it. I remember making that a similar comment, but Adam, if you made it as well, I'm fine with you taking the heat. But if you didn't, I just don't want it to be on you.
I actually had the exact same comment, Eric, that AN, I don't remember making that comment. So
All right, so this
you
is
remember doing it, Eric? Yeah.
Claire, just change AN to EF.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yep.
That's all I had.
That was what I had as well.
Funny, that I didn't know. Okay, I've got, again, really silly ones. Let's see, so on line 60, Ms. Braccio ended by saying that a conversation had been held with Mass DOT. Just don't put the dot there, just say, so keep the sentence going regarding the rescinding of the Main Street exclusion. So make it one sentence.
Okay.
Okay. Now go to line 88. I just want you to get rid of that sentence that starts about halfway over in 88, where you say the budget is only funded through the end of calendar year, December 20. That's actually not right. And we're going to get into this in great detail shortly, but the Board of Health budget is funded all the way through the end of 22, but it's funded at the same amounts from previous year. And you say that above, Claire, so that sentence actually contradicts something you say right above that.
Okay.
Okay, so just
So
get rid of the sentence. So I gotta just
Yep.
get rid of
I'll
the
fix that out.
All right. All right. I think this is the last one on 108. Blue Phazon, you just need, it's F-A-Z-E-N instead of F-A-Z-O-N. All right, one more. So 181, again, I'm doing the silly stuff. Any relevance with mixed use? He recommends having having the focus of the article be mixed use only. So just get rid of the word to and make it the. Having the focus of the article be mixed use only.
Okay.
Okay, that's it. Good job.
And then Claire, I don't know if you want to put it in there, but I think when we were talking about the downtown, I think I specifically made a suggestion of 3 edits. Changing the 0.3 FAR to 0.35, changing the 0.40 residential restriction to 0.50, and changing the residential units from 3 to 4. So I don't know if you want to add that in.
You definitely did, and I think it should be in there, given that's what, I mean, that's not inconsequential.
And it did feel like there was some
Line-
consensus
what
on that as
next-
well.
That. What
Sorry,
line?
Claire?
What line is that?
Probably 185. You could probably just tack it on to whatever else I said.
Okay,
You're adding this, Claire, it's not in there, you're adding, that's what
Yep.
he suggested.
okay.
Okay, all right, that's it. Okay, so AP, you will make a motion to approve both sets of minutes as edited.
So moved.
Okay, can we have a second?
Second,
All right, Eric seconded Claire. A roll call vote. Eric,
aye.
Cook is aye. Pfaff,
Aye.
Marcy,
Aye.
Adam.
Aye.
Okay, so 5-0, Claire, to approve both sets of minutes as edited. So if anyone wonders why I call it Andrew Pfaff AP, until last year, we had 2 Andrews on advisory. Andrew Dennington, who ran for board of selectmen and won. So we had 2 Andrews, so we had to distinguish our 2 Andrews. And it's just a habit for me to call him AP. Okay, so tonight we're going to, I hope, dispose of the minor articles for the special town meeting on November 1st. It's still a go as far as we know. 7 o'clock at the Trotter Gym. We should get there maybe 15 minutes or so early, 30 minutes, 15 minutes or so, so we can chat. We can actually talk. We don't have to call a meeting when you have a town meeting. We're okay to talk. So we should get there a few minutes early. I don't know how they're going to seat us. They're going to put everybody 6 feet apart, I guess. So it's going to be kind of far flung. So I'm not sure what the seating. Normally we sit at the front with the board of selectmen on our side. So we sit across from each other, but I don't know what they'll do this time to make it all work. We will see. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about the easy ones first, and then we'll leave the 3 hard ones to the last, which are the Board of Health budget and downtown initiative, and then the servers. We've got lots to tell you guys about each one of those that we did not discuss Thursday. So I just wanted to wait tonight and kind of give you the entire background so you really understand what's going on with at least 2 of the 3. You've probably got a pretty good idea what's going on with the downtown initiative by this point. At least I know Marcy does. Okay, so let's do the relatively easy ones first. Okay. So Andrew, you want to describe the change in the, we're going to hear a lot about IT tonight. The first one is being proposed because of our discussion over the last two years on the structure of the IT department for the town. What's appropriate, what's right. Advice recommended that we needed a second person. It shouldn't just fall on one person to basically manage the whole town infrastructure. It's just too risky. We had warned the town about this 2 years ago. You can read the report that we put in the town meeting report for that year. We had a very competent person named Tom LaFlamme, who was our IT person. He came to us and he wanted a part-time person to help him with the more ministerial things that he does. Silly questions. This was before Zoom, so this was before the pandemic, but he's had a lot of calls that he had to do because he had no one else. He wanted somebody to help with the help desk type stuff. He did not want a second person to basically sit beside him and help him. That's what we wanted, and we talked to him and finally said, fine, we will support what you want. But we kept saying, what if you get sick? What if you go down? What if you leave? He kept saying, I'm not going to. Well, then he quit like 2 weeks later. And we didn't have an IT person for 5 months. So from November of 2019 to November of 20, November of 19. So the pandemic has really made my calendar messed up. So November of 19 through April of 20, we had no one on our IT group at all. So we were that exposed. So then we were really insistent the next time that we really wanted a second person, so that if something happened to the primary person, there's a second person that could step into his shoes, somebody he could talk to, make plans with, discuss things. The Municipal Technology Committee, which is full of really competent people, totally agreed. And so in the end, that's what was agreed, and that was what was funded in the budget for fiscal year 22, was the second person to basically support Jay, who is now our current IT manager, and not just be a help desk person. So the reason that this bylaw change is being proposed is because of that second person. We didn't have a place for him in the salary administration plan. So this amendment to the salary administration plan bylaw will allow that person to be hired. So that's the purpose, and that's the background of doing this. So this one, we're going to talk more about IT shortly, but I thought I at least need to tell you that much so you understand why this is being added at this time for a special town meeting. Normally you wait till March to do it at the annual town meeting, but this is something we want to see happen sooner than later. And it is budgeted, the money's in there to hire this person. We just need to find a place for him to fit as far as the structure of the people who are on the salary administration plan. So those are the people who are not union, they don't have a management contract. It's pretty much everybody else. There's about 50 people on it in the town. Okay. Andrea, anything you want to add to that?
No, I think you summed it up. It's relatively simple.
Yep. Okay. So does anyone have any questions on that one? We can hold this one till we talk about IT, but that's at least the background as to why it's being proposed.
Makes sense.
Okay. So the Municipal Technology Committee, the chair of it is a gentleman named Matt Probst. He runs McKinsey Security worldwide. And then Angela, who's on it, she works for Bain and does consulting projects in this area. So that's two of the backgrounds of the people on there. And the other ones are really good too, but it's a real competent group of people. So advisory tends to want to rely on their recommendations because we're lucky to have them. So we were in lockstep with them as far as the second person goes. All right. So if there's no more discussion, why don't we, Andrew, you want to make all the motions as far as these 7 articles?
Sure.
Okay.
And
Eric, you do
Eric, why don't you second them just because I see you first?
Yeah.
Makes it faster. Okay. I move that the advisory committee supports Article 1 as written in the November 1st warrant.
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Again, I'm going to do it as I see people. Eric,
Aye.
Cook is aye. AP,
Aye.
Marcy,
Aye.
and Adam.
Aye.
Okay, so Claire 5-0 in support. Okay, the next one is changing the name of the Board of Select Men to Select Board. Anybody have anything they want to add to the discussion we had last Thursday on that one?
No. Okay.
It's pretty obvious why they're going there. We have 2 women on the Board of Select Men. Okay, Andrew.
I move that the advisory committee supports Article 2 as written in the November 1st warrant.
I second.
Roll call vote. Eric,
Aye.
Cook is aye. AP,
Aye.
Marcy,
Aye.
Adam.
Aye.
Okay, 5-0 Claire. Okay, I'm going to skip 3, I'm going to skip 4, and I'm going to go to 5, which is the traffic study for the truck exclusions that would end up maybe with truck exclusions. So did everyone see the proposal from VHB that was emailed to us by Mark Purple?
Yes.
Yep.
So that's the proposal to actually do the study. The 25 is got some fluff in it, so it's 15, and then the VHB people think that we should add 7 for expenses and extra stuff, which is 22, and then they want 20. They want to put 25 in the article, which makes sense. Anybody want to talk further about the need to do this? Sounds like the proponent for the article at the regular town meeting, which was a gentleman from Flag Road, is not necessarily happy about this. It sounds like he still thinks that they should just go ahead and put the solution on Flag Road. I mean, Flag Road it's pitiful that, you know, you have any trucks on it that are not going to a destination on Flag Road. But I personally think it's still the right thing to do to look at the whole town, because there's a lot of roads like it's not just Flag Road. My road's this way, Andrew's road's that way. I'm sure there's others. So we're just full of, you know, country, winding, pretty roads in town, and it's hard to let trucks zip through them like they do right now. So I think that their approach is probably pretty sound. I don't know what you guys think. So Eric, any comments on whether you think this approach is what you would do?
After reading the survey or reading the proposal, I saw some potential weaknesses, but I'm very new to this. So overall, I think the to-be select board thinks this is the right move. I'll trust in their judgment. I did have a question, which maybe is back to AP. I feel like there was discussion last time in terms of whether this could be covered with a reserve fund transfer or other means, or if this needed to be just, I guess, how we were going to fund this. I'm still a little unclear on that.
Yeah, I mean, this would fund it just like a regular article. So this would just make it a regular article funding. So we wouldn't have to use reserve fund. If we didn't have fall town meeting, probably that's where we would have gone for this, but.
Got it. Okay. No, I'm sorry. Simplified. I'm supportive.
So the budget passed in May. We're adding $25,000 to it by doing this. That's the effect of this. But $25,000 doesn't move the needle at all as far as the budget goes, or as far as the impact on things. It takes $400,000 of expenses to actually change the increase in the tax rate by 1%. So this is just a fraction. So this is what, 16th of that. So this is not going to move the needle at all. It could be done with reserve fund, but I think I agree with Andrew. Let's just go ahead and fund it, and they've got the money there. It doesn't mean that this is going to happen. It just means they're going to study this, and then from that decide what they want to do. So I don't know what the outcome is, but I will say for the 2 residents of Oak that they didn't list Oak here. Were you surprised about that, Andrew?
I got to talk to Karen, but I was assuming that we just did the study in June. But that'd be by VHB, I think it was, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I was surprised by that as well, but I think that was also, I was interested to see that they had a select group of roads that they were going to specifically study, but then we're going to use that and then still come up with an overall plan for the town. But again, I'm not the expert and haven't been on the previous conversation, so.
Well, you might want to make sure that that's the plan, that they know they already have that one, so they have to do it again. VHB has been used a lot by the town. I think people are pretty impressed as far as the work they do. Marty Healy worked with them when he was chair of the road committee that resulted in the downtown being renovated. So I think that they are a pretty competent group as far as doing this kind of work. This is what they do. Okay. Any further discussion as far as, go ahead, Marcy.
Yeah, I had one comment at the last meeting, which was I wanted to see the proposal to see what they were going to do in addition to traffic counts. And, section 1.1 says, they're going to do that for 48 hours. And I guess maybe look at turning movement counts, maybe comparing them in sequence. I'm not sure. So I didn't see anything about videos or cameras or anything that, would really tell you what I've heard the selectmen say they want, which is where are the trucks coming from and where are they going if you're counting just, on the road. So I guess maybe they're going to compare it in sequence. So I'm sort of like Eric, I'll defer to expertise, but it doesn't sound to me like a very comprehensive study just based on what I read.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of counting and frequencies of things. There is a section in here on mapping, but I agree with you, Marcy. It didn't feel super comprehensive to me. And 48 hours also seems like a very small amount of time, but I guess it's some data is better than no data.
So Marcy, you want to follow up with Mark Purple and just see what he says as far as, because I agree, I had the impression we had last Thursday was that it was much more than a counting exercise. This is clearly a counting exercise for the most part.
I mean, they do mention that they will have two, it looks like checkpoints of observation. So it's a little bit more than just counting, but I just wondered if there was other, options that might be available for not, maybe much more money, or, just to really get at the results that it seems like folks are looking for. That's really my only comment. But I'm happy to follow up with Mark Purple and find out more information, Kathy.
But you're
Yeah.
right, you don't really see in here where they would come through and say, yes, Ken's Food is doing this, or FedEx on my road, in the morning FedEx, they all take off at the same time. The trucks, they come flying on Pine Hill Road to head to Marlboro. That's their cut through to get to Marlboro. So it says boom, 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 boom. And so I'm not sure that they're going to see that. It depends on what time they're out there,
Yeah, they have in here, there's something that it says one of the data that they'll be breaking down is directional distribution. So that, I suppose, it gets at some of the flow. It's not
think it-
very descriptive in here.
Yeah, I think it's the truck route mapping, right? Use the previously collected data as a summary of existing roadways, opportunities to determine potential truck routes through the town. Right, that's the big part, is using the data to see options for truck routes will be identified. So kind of looking at all the data and what are the options.
Right, so that I'm assuming will be their guidance to us on how they would route trucks through the town. Do we have a hypothesis on what that should be if we didn't do this study? Do you know?
I think we've got our common sense.
I think people
Yeah.
have their own, Route 9 and
85.
85 for going this way, and the northbound ones on the other direction.
Yeah, so there's this study. I don't know. I mean, again, it's not a lot of money. I don't think we're going to find anything earth shattering here, but
Because we know what the answer should be.
I would think so, but I'm fine with this. I don't have any major battle here.
Hey,
I
Tim.
think the only thing I would add is that a big decision apparently the Board of Selectmen is possibly making at the end of this, which is to pull the truck exclusion from Main Street and maybe add one with the Department of Transportation approval on other roads. So it is something that we really should have maybe more answers than what this might provide. Just in my opinion, but
So our job right now is to decide whether we support an article to fund this. I mean, we're not supporting the actual conclusion or what they do with the conclusion. So this is simply, do we agree that we should spend $25,000 to allow this study to take place? Do we think it's a wise use of town funds? Hey, Tim.
Sorry, I'm
Go
late.
ahead. That's okay. So Tim, we just started, all we've done so far is approve the personnel bylaw change that adds a place for the second IT person, which I assume you're fine with. So I gave everybody a little background as to why that's happening. We're going to talk about IT in more detail, but I at least gave them enough to understand why that's being added. So that's all we've done so far. And now we're talking about the article that tries to approve $25,000 to fund the study. So we don't want to go too far. Our job is not to necessarily opine on where to put a truck exclusion, is to basically say, do we think this is money well spent?
I'm sorry if I missed it. Do we know when the study is proposed to be taking place?
They don't say when. They say that, they've got 3 different tasks here, and they're saying, so at the outside, it's going to take 14 weeks in total when you look at the range of weeks, but they don't say when they're going to start.
And is Park Central included? I mean, wouldn't it be kind of silly to do a 25K traffic study and then have Park Central go in?
Well, I'll give you the answer is they won't include Park Central in this. Every study we've tried to do recently, as far as the school population, they didn't include Park Central, and which made no sense to me either, because it can make a real big difference, right? So they have listed the streets they're going to basically observe. And they're going to observe what's really happening, not what would happen if the traffic were to increase a lot because of Park Central.
Yeah, I think Flag Road's not on here. I'm assuming it's also because they just did a study there. But I think that would be the only road, regardless of what happened on Park Central, that would be the only road affected.
But isn't Flag and Deerfoot, aren't those the roads that spawn this whole thing?
Yes.
So how could it not be on it?
It's because
I think
they're talking about doing traffic recorder counts. I think they did, like Oak Hill wasn't on there too, Tim, which they did in June. And I think they did Flag Road, I don't know. I think shortly after town meeting, I think they did it in May.
They did.
It-
Yeah, I mean, they're not going to come through and say, oh, please put trucks on Flag Road. There's no way they're going to conclude that's what they should do. So I'm sure that Flag Road won't be one identified as a good truck route.
Deerfoot is on here, Tim.
It is? Okay.
Yeah, there's a turning movement count onto Deerfoot.
So Main Street to Deerfoot.
Yeah, I mean, I guess to Kathy, to your point, we could probably critique the actual study and proposal to death here, but if they feel like they're going to get data that they need to make the right decision, I would support this study. I think we all have some ideas of how we might design it differently, but if that's not our job, I think the concept of doing a study to get them data is warranted, personally.
Tim, any other comment as far as this goes? Because we either are going to vote tonight or we're going to decide to wait till Marcy asks a couple more questions just to make sure we're satisfied that they flesh this out well enough.
Have any comments, Kathy? Thank you. I don't know how I feel about it, but I don't have any comments.
Well, are you ready to vote on tonight? As far as funding the study, that's all we're voting on, is whether we think we should spend $25,000 on this study.
If the board's ready, I'll be ready.
Just forgive me, just a quick clarification. If and when these questions come up at the special town meeting, we will be able to defer to the select board, correct? To dive into the details of what their discussions have been. Like if we're voting to support this, I just want to make sure that if we have outstanding questions about some of the details, if we're going to be asked to respond to those, that we obviously have that information.
We should definitely get those questions answered before we still vote tonight. It sounds like I think this group is probably going to support this. And someone gets up, it sounds like the guy who sponsored the article at town meeting may get up and he may, I don't know what he can do. They don't have the authority, and they can only ask the selectmen to request a truck exclusion. They can't pass an article to force it. And that's what they did in May. They basically asked selectmen to put a truck exclusion on Flag Road. And what selectmen decided to do is, rather than pick one road, because they knew it was going to have a problem because of what was already on Main Street, they decided to do this instead. So my guess is there's going to be some discussion on this at the special, because if you follow the blog, and of course you usually get people who aren't happy about something that are saying things, the guy who did this clearly is not happy that this is the way it's going. He still says he just wants the exclusion on Flag Road. Just do the exclusion on Flag Road, and if you want to do something else, that's great, but don't do this at the exclusion of putting the exclusion on Flag Road. So I think this is going to get discussed. I don't know what's going to happen, so we'll see. It will probably depend on what the Board of Selectmen say at that meeting as far as whether this passes or not. If they can be convincing in that, we really can't do this with one road. We really need to take a holistic look at it, because it's not the only road with a problem, and you put it on one road, then you create a problem with another road. I think that makes sense. It's a 50% vote. It's not a 2/3 vote. So my guess is it probably will pass if they make their argument with something like that.
So Kathy, I suggest let's just vote on it. And then if we get more information by next meeting that we want to change our vote, because we're already going to be at town meeting for all our votes anyway.
Yeah. So Marcy, can you be the point person and call Mark Purple and just, run these questions that we've asked tonight by him and see what he says? He's pretty good about responding to stuff like that. Okay. So Andrew.
This is what, Article 5?
Yep.
I move that the advisory committee supports Article 5 as written in the November 1st warrant.
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Eric,
Aye.
Cook, aye. AP,
Aye.
Marcy,
No.
did you say no?
Yeah, I said no pending my questions to Mark
Okay,
Kirby.
that's perfectly fine. Adam,
Aye.
okay, Tim.
Aye.
Okay, so Claire, that was 5-1 with Marcy saying, Marcy the nay, and the other 5, everybody else.
And Marcy, there's no reason if you come back with something, we can always change our vote.
Okay, we can always revote, so this is not written in stone.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought. Thank
Not
you.
written in stone at all. And sometimes, just so you know, things get amended at the town meeting that we got to talk about real quick as far as what our position is. And you have to be pretty quick on our feet. So that's probably going to happen, at least with the downtown initiative, for sure. Okay, so that's number 5. Let's do the advisory membership next, which is number 6. Okay, so 2 things we're trying to accomplish there. We're trying to reduce the formal number on the advisory committee from 9 to 7, and we're trying to officially add the position of vice chair. Okay. Now, I do know there's going to be one person, at least at town meeting, that's going to stand up and say that he understands our problem, but he thinks the better way to approach it is for the town to adopt a bylaw where quorums are the majority of seated members on committees. So that if you've got, a 7 committee, 7 people seated, your quorum's going to be 4. So that's his way to solve this. He thinks committees should be 9, but I don't agree. So
Kathy, here's a quick question. I'm sorry for interrupting you.
Uh-huh.
I feel that has the possibility of clashing with state law.
oh, it does.
Yeah, so that's flat
Yeah,
out.
so it's not an easy fix, right? I mean, there's a lot you'd have to do to get that to happen. So, and we're not doing this because this is the easier way to do it, but we do, at least the previous version of the advisory committee really felt sincerely that 7 was a better number. 9 was too unwieldy. And I've been on at least one other 9-member committee in town that was well run, one of the best committees, if not the best committee I've been on, and it still had too many people. You were leaning out trying to see who was talking. So I really think that 7 is the better number. I think it's enough. Not too many, not too little. So we'll see. I really believe that this is not an arbitrary thing. There's nothing nefarious behind this, which people always think there is, but there's not. And there's other committees that have 9 seats that have the same problem we do. They've got vacancies, and sometimes they can't even get a quorum. So it's not just our problem. So I think that other committee members who are there that are town residents that are there will hopefully support this too. So I really think this time it'll pass. It didn't pass in May because we really focused on the other thing we were trying to get changed, which we no longer are changing yet, which is allowing an advisory committee member to sit on a permanent committee, another permanent committee besides advisory. So that's where all of the discussion took place in May, was on that issue. No one cares about whether we had a vice chair. I can't imagine anyone's going to say a word about that. And so this may have a little discussion, but I do think it's not going to have a ton of discussion. So I'm hoping this will get resolved pretty quickly. All righty. Okay. Any further discussion on this one? Okay, Andrew.
All right, I move that the advisory committee supports Article 6 as printed in the November 1st warrant.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? So roll call vote. Eric,
Aye.
Cook is aye. AP,
Aye.
Marcy,
Aye.
Adam.
Aye.
Tim.
Aye.
There's a clear 6-0 on that one. Okay, so next let's do the 3 that are sponsored by the town clerk that he explained to us on last Thursday. Let's just do those together. Those are just truly ministerial things that he's trying to fix. Does anyone have a problem with any of the 3? Okay. All right. So Andrew, why don't you make a motion for all three at one
Sure.
time? So it's,
7, 8, and 9, right?
yep,
I move that the advisory committee supports Articles 7, 8, and 9 as printed in the November 1st warrant.
Second.
okay, any further discussion of any of those three? All right, roll call vote, Eric,
Aye.
Cook is aye, AP,
Aye.
Marcy,
Aye.
Adam,
Aye.
okay, Tim?
Aye.
All right, so 6-0 on those three, clear. Okay, so now we're left with the more substantive ones. I'm going to start with the Board of Health revised budget because I see Ms. Malinowski in the audience, so we may want to bring her over. She's probably going to be interested in this discussion. She may want to say something. So she's there, so let's start with her. I'm sure she is trying to get kids to bed, so let's be considerate of her time. Okay, so I'm going to start with the background. Tim and Andrew, you guys pitch in here when I've missed something or something's lacking here. But in order for everyone to understand why this is even happening, we've got to go back and give you some deep background here. So the Board of Health has 3 people on it. It has changed quite a bit since we dealt with the Board of Health starting last January and February. So 2 of the 3 people are gone, and they've been replaced by Chelsea Malinowski, who's also on the Board of Selectmen, and then a doctor whose name I cannot recall, who we met briefly last Thursday. So it's basically 2 out of 3 have turned over. So it's basically a new board. The 3rd person is Nancy Sacco, who is a nurse. So very versed, well versed as far as healthcare issues. So we started off last February with just a normal budget discussion with them because they were asking for their budget to increase substantially year over year. A very abnormal increase. We don't approve budget increases like this. They wanted their budget to go up almost double. They wanted to make 2 people full-time, which means that includes benefits at this point. They wanted to make a 3rd person full-time who was being split at that point between 2 departments. She was the admin, so they wanted a full-time admin for the department. So they wanted to go from 3 part-time positions to 3 full-time positions. They wanted to add a brand new scanner just for their department. They wanted to increase hours for the guy that does the septic inspections. So it was just a huge increase they wanted for their budget. And we probably spent more time on that one budget, which is actually a relatively small budget compared to some of the big ones, than we did any other budget for the whole year. We had meeting after meeting after meeting with them. I had personal conversations with the chair, who was a well-meaning person herself. She just was, she thought that the Board of Health in Southport just really needed to change, and permanently. She didn't believe that the changes were proposed and were due to COVID. And we had a hard time trying to determine whether this really was COVID driven and therefore temporary, or whether this really was something that the town of Southborough needed. And at this moment, I'm still not sure exactly what the town of Southborough needs permanently. You heard what the doctor said last week, but if you listen to what he said, he's still talking about COVID as far as we need this, we need that. Those are COVID things. Up until they came to us last year, the focus of the Board of Health had been much more on things like septic systems, approvals, et cetera. So we just had a hard time understanding what in 2021 a small town Board of Health should look like. On top of that, we knew that the state was starting to encourage towns to use a regionalization approach, share services, combine things. When you don't need something full-time, put it together so that you can save some money. Up until that, every town was kind of on its own, but that's changing as we speak tonight. As indicative of that, we have been awarded a $300,000, possibly 12-year grant to share certain services with 3 other towns. which Chelsea talked about a little bit last week also. So that's approved. We've got it. There is a mechanism in place to share those services. But what we were looking for was time to truly sort this out and really understand what the Board of Health should look like permanently. We understood that they needed to ramp up things for COVID. We got that. But we didn't understand if we really needed this ramp up to be permanent, or is it something that should ramp back down? And I can tell you, sitting here tonight, I still don't understand. I've read, so then they engaged a prior director of the health department here, Dr. Lou Faison, to do a study, to talk to people in town and write a report as to what he thinks we should do. So has everybody read that report? If you haven't, we're not voting on this tonight. We're just going to try to give everybody the background and give everybody time to think. I'm glad Chelsea's listening to this, because we're going to ask the Board of Health to come next week and talk to us. Because we just got to be convinced before we support what they want to do for their budget that this is truly what we need to do permanently. Once you get people hired and on the payroll, it's very hard to undo that. So this is an important decision. It is very costly to add a person to payroll. You're talking about, benefits that are a big cost to the town between pension and healthcare, et cetera. So it's not a trivial thing to add a person on the town payroll. So we just want to make sure we really understand where we're going here before we vote to do this. So, and this is the part that's going to be a little hard to describe when you're not used to the budget and all the nuances. So what advisory did last year, in order to try to give the new board a chance to figure this out, we proposed that the Board of Health budget stay flat from fiscal year 21 to 22 for the most part. And therefore, that would allow us to leverage the CARES Act funding that would pay for the additional cost of the full-time nurse and the full-time health director from July 1st to December 31st. That's when the CARES Act funding right now expires. If we had put the cost of those two people in the budget with their full-time salaries, you couldn't do that. So the only way we could leverage the CARES Act funding is if the budget didn't include those extra hours. So contracts were signed for both. They go through 6/30/22. So both the nurse and the full-time director have contracts from July 1st of 21 to 6/30/22. The current Board of Health budget does not include the full cost of those contracts. It includes a piece of it, probably 15/40 or something like that. So the expectation was to use CARES Act for the first 6 months, and then the advisory committee that was seated at that time voted to support using the reserve fund to back up the cost of the additional cost for the two of them from January 1st of 22 through 6/30/22 if no other funding became available at that point to do it. We wanted to keep them that extra time out of the budget so that it will allow us maybe the ability to use outside funding like the CARES Act, if the CARES Act got extended, if the American Rescue Plan said we could use it. So that's what we did in May. Now roll forward. And we knew we were going to have that. We had planned to have a special town meeting. We knew this was going to be one of the things on it. So here we are. And so what's happened is the new Board of Health has decided to basically propose that we simply go ahead and fund in the formal budget the additional cost of these two people. Now, I'm going to tell you, there's a little bit of dispute on whether it should be from November 1st or January 1st, but let's not get hung up in that now. That's still being discussed. I think Andrew Pfaff and I are the only ones that agree that it really should be January 1st. There's no reason that we can't use CARES for November, December, but that's TBD as far as getting that worked out. So that's kind of where we are right now. What I'm disappointed in is that I don't think that there's been a whole lot of work done to really say this is what the structure should look like. What does this town really need? We know that we are a septic-based town. We know we've got some restaurants. So what does a public health department of a small town, what's it really supposed to do in 2021? And I don't know that we know that still. AP and Tim may disagree with me, but I am not convinced. I still understand what this department should look like. And therefore I have trouble supporting a budget that basically formalizes making 2 former part-time positions full-time, which means that that's probably what we're going to have for the near future. So now I just want Andrew and Tim to add anything they feel is pertinent to what I said.
You know, I would agree with you, Kathy. I read Dr. Fazen's report, and while it was great, I think I'm still missing that gap analysis of what are we doing today versus what should we be doing from a state mandate or from a federal mandate? And then what's the cost benefit analysis of doing all those things and being one of the very few towns that are compliant with that. I'm not in favor of doing that. I just don't quite understand yet what we're missing and how we get there and what the benefit is to the residents and why the additional cost is worth it. And if that's, there's something shown, then I can support it, but I'm missing some of that information.
No, I definitely agree. I think the pandemic has, in some people's mind, changed. I'm sorry, my video's off. Has changed the scope of what the Board of Health has historically done in town. And sure, it can be a good thing. The town needs to be on board with it because they're paying for it. So, I mean, it's not that dissimilar to what we're seeing with youth and family services and the budget increases they've had over the last couple of years because of the increasing demands with mental health issues in town. We need to be careful as a town that we're allowing the town to decide what the scope of services should be and not doing it with incremental budget hits over the course of 1 or 2 decades. So I'm on board with you both.
I mean, so one way we could go is to say we want to stick with what we did at the regular town meeting. We want to continue to not put this in the budget so that we've got the possibility to continue to use outside funding. And then to the extent that that doesn't come to fruition, that we will use reserve fund to backstop it. The reserve fund's got $190,000 in it. So there's enough money to do this, assuming nothing else comes up that is major. And we don't know that that won't happen.
Yeah, and Kathy, I mean, we talked a little bit about the CARES part, but the money that's being asked in the warrant article includes November and December, correct?
It does.
So if in theory we don't approve it today, we would continue to get 2 more months of funding, which would then lower the backstop to what, maybe 80,000? I don't know what the rough number would be.
Something like that, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm pretty new to this and coming without the background that you folks have, but hearing the conversation, reading the report, I'm aligned with you. I am very hesitant to go ahead and say we want to add 2 full-time positions, knowing that it's very hard to walk those back and the long-term cost of those benefits and long-term cost of the town. If we had a very clear plan and had a very clear understanding of what those people were going to do and what the vision was, and I think if the town also had an appropriate amount of time to review that vision, to debate it, to chime in and to feel bought into it, to Tim's point, then I could certainly be supportive or be swayed, but I don't feel like that's here. So again, I want to be cognizant that I have not been in a lot of the previous conversations, but I'm given where the reserve fund is currently and that we have that mechanism in place and that there in theory is some more federal funds available. I don't know why we wouldn't ask that they do a little bit more homework and roll up their sleeves and then we readdress this, in the spring.
Not only that, if the state really is supporting towns looking at regionalization, they will probably provide more money to do that, just like they did with the shared services grant. Remember, the state's got $5 billion right now. They're trying to figure out what to do with. They're arguing between the legislature who needs to do it, but there's a lot of money that they're going to soon decide how it gets spent. So, I'm not convinced yet. That's still not the way to go. As far as at least the short term, so that we really get to the point, we understand where the state's going. We understand what this town really needs. We hopefully see some daylight from COVID, and can see, past COVID that we keep thinking we're about to get past, and then something else happens. So Chelsea, I see your hand up. We're going to bring you in.
Should we bring her over now, Kathy?
Yeah, go ahead and bring her over.
Oh, Eric did. Okay.
Hi, everyone. How are you?
We are
Good.
fine.
Hey, Chelsea.
Hey, Chelsea.
So I just wanted to answer a couple of questions, and I certainly don't have all the answers yet. But when you talk about the requirements for state mandates, Mary Lou actually put together a PowerPoint presentation in preparation for annual town meeting in the spring. And it essentially included all of the requirements that the town health department should be performing. And the Board of Health actually met yesterday morning to start to prep for our presentation at special town meeting. And we brought that up, and I sent that over to the health department last night to have them update where we're fully compliant, where we're partially compliant, and where we're not compliant. And I think that the shared service grant has actually enhanced some of those line items that we weren't doing before, that we are doing now, specifically for the housing and food inspections. So I think if we do a comparison over the last 6 months for you, you can at least see what we've gained from the shared service grant, and that and then you can still see the deficiencies that were not fully compliant. So once that's updated, I can circulate that around to you so you can take a look.
So Chelsea, is it a long list at this point
Yeah, I think it's 67 line items.
that we're not compliant with?
No, that's like what at a minimum the health department should be performing.
And I know Andrew's looked at this, and he thinks that we're kind of in the same boat with pretty much every other town, that there's really no one that's compliant because it's too hard to be compliant.
I don't know that. I don't know that specifically, but I'm not surprised if that is accurate.
And so we know that we are not totally compliant with this huge list of things we have to be compliant with. So we've got the Mary Lou educated us as far as that goes.
Yeah.
So we've got that piece of it.
Right. But I think my point is that I think we've proven that sharing resources has allowed us to become compliant in things that we weren't compliant in 6 months ago, which I think is important for you to see the success that we've had with the shared service grant.
Yeah, no, I think Chelsea, I think that's awesome. And I just want to see, like, okay, if we're 40 out of 67, the next 27 can be covered under these resources, or we're going to need more, that's just my concern, right? I don't know what the gap is and what the action plan is to solve for those gap, and what the town gets for doing it, right?
Yeah, and I think also my question is closing the gap going to require long-term sustaining full-time headcount?
So
beyond closing.
Hold on a second. So as the second part of our meeting yesterday, we decided we're going to do a report for town meeting rather than a presentation, because there will not be any visual presentation capability. And we were discussing what, that none of us expected to be in the pandemic still at this point, right? Like we still, like our public health nurse is helping with test and stays in the school system. Like we didn't anticipate that type of resource constraint at this point when we were talking about this 6 months ago. And so the other thing is inspectional services. Like that's our bread and butter for this town, right? Like 90% of our town is on septic. So do we have the best model for handling that volume? I'm not sure that we do. Does it work for right now? Yeah, it's working. But I think we came to the conclusion yesterday that we need to kind of have everything on the table and see what the best long-term output is for Southborough. So we were unanimous in this motion, and I'm just going to read you what we agreed to yesterday. To support the FY22 budget for staffing to respond to the pandemic, and at the same time continue discussions and planning to increase shared resources and future regionalization. So, I think I agree with Kathy that I think I would have thought that we would have been further along in a future model than we are, but I still think that we're not out of day-to-day operations of dealing with COVID, understanding that COVID will always be with us, but that it, once the kids get vaccinated, contact tracing is probably going to be a thing of the past, right? Like it's not going to be as prevalent as it is now. So I think that there's still a lot of things that we're doing that I'm hoping will go away. So I just want you to know that the board did discuss that we still need to look at what the right fit is for Southborough, and that we should be keeping any shared service opportunities at the forefront, and also do longer term planning for potential regionalization.
Well, music to our ears, Chelsea. So, no one disputes that we've got a short-term need as far as additional hours from both the nurse and the director. There's no disputes there because of COVID. We're just trying to make sure that what we do November 1st doesn't make something permanent that's not ready to be permanent. And it sounds like you're almost saying the same thing. And I understand we've got to get, we've got to figure out how the budget is going to, we've got to pay for these contracts for the whole year.
So what I can't answer for you, which I know you would love an answer on, is we haven't gotten to a point in our evaluation. We've had Dr. Medina on for 40 days, probably at this point, 45 days. Yeah. So we're dealing with getting him up to speed on here's where we're at. This is the funding issues that, we have right now, and how do we want to proceed? And we felt like it was the most responsible thing to do, seeing as we have 2 contracts through June, to not tie up the reserve fund with $100,000. So I think that we will come across, I hope we'll come across more opportunities to share things for better service for Southborough, but I can't answer what we're looking at for FY23 yet, because we haven't gotten there.
So I don't think we're on a very different page here at all. It's just the question of whether, how to fund the rest of fiscal year 22. So it sounds like, and I know you've got your, you're working hard on this. Okay, so I don't know what else we can say tonight. I think everybody needs to kind of think about this, maybe reread Dr. Faison's report, and then we're going to vote next week, Chelsea. So I didn't know you were going to be in the audience tonight. So
you're not on YouTube. You're not on YouTube. Usually I listen without being in the room, but
so you got caught. You couldn't.
I did.
You couldn't hide from us. So sorry about that if you weren't playing.
No, that's okay.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot. But yeah, the YouTube's not working.
Okay.
Jay said he was going to take this recording, put it on YouTube tomorrow.
Okay.
So we still may want you to come back next Wednesday, just so you know. Maybe
okay. So Dr. Faison's public forum is next Thursday night too. So I'll give that another plug there. So if you have questions about his report, that would be, okay, I'm on a call. Are you okay? Oh, yeah, I'm good. Thank you. Sorry. So if you can join that, or if you have specific questions, that would be helpful. I will not have the first draft of our report in by next Wednesday, and we're not scheduled, the Board of Health is not scheduled to meet until the 26th. So if you want me to come back next week, I'm happy to. I'm not going to probably have any more information than what I just gave you.
All right, so we'll see. We'll play it by ear.
Okay.
So you're going to hand out the written report at the special?
Yes.
Okay. And
I mean,
I don't think you've got much choice, but of course that means that a lot of people won't have a chance to read it.
Well, I would like to post it on the town website before the meeting.
Yep.
I just, Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So
But
let's,
I think the bottom line is that the position we took yesterday is we are open to all options on the table for what the best service is going to be for the town.
and we are too. We just want to know what it should look like,
Mhm.
And it's depressing when you say we're never going to get rid of COVID. Let's hope we at least have COVID under control soon.
Yeah.
So if we
Right.
never truly get rid of it, we're stuck with, this type of stuff forever. We at least can deal with it, and maybe not have to live like we have the last year and a half. Okay, so let's just keep talking, and then we decide whether you should come back next Wednesday. We should just go to Dr. Fazen's public forum and see what he's got to say, and then decide. But we got to vote soon, as far as whether to support or not support, and if we don't support,
Yeah.
what do we support?
Right. I mean, we're in these contracts, right? So,
that we get that,
yeah.
right? So we know
So-
that. So we agree that we are going to pay for these contracts to the end of one way or another through 6/30 for sure. So we get that.
Okay. Okay.
All right.
Yeah, and I would say, Chelsea, I think, especially with COVID kind of not being done like we would hope by now, personally, this kind of trial COVID kind of staffing levels, I could see continuing into the next year. But I think the important thing is, what do we do when that hopefully is a lot less demanding?
Yeah.
What does that long term look like? But I think
Right.
I just think our concern is as you know, making a permanent staffing thing is very hard in this town to undo.
I understand.
So keeping
I
it in a
understand. She knows that better than
trial
anybody.
mode, if we want to call it something like that.
Chelsea has preached not hiring people as
Yeah.
much as anybody else, so she gets that piece of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Generally, I am not in favor of adding positions. I just, at this point, I am not comfortable, not following through with these two positions in particular, given the amount of work
Yeah.
that the town needs right now.
Well, aren't you really saying I'm not comfortable relying on the reserve fund to fund them from January 1st on? Is what you're really not comfortable with?
No, I'm not comfortable
We've
with that
signed
either.
contracts, right? We've signed contracts. Question is, how you pay for what pocket it comes out of.
Yeah.
So now, while you're here, one more question: how is Barbara Sperry working out as far as her split job?
So we decided not to bring that forward at this time. I think it's working fine. Is it perfect? Are there some improvements that can be done? Probably. But I think that this was on a higher level than the admin position. So I think she's getting done what she needs to get done for both departments right now.
Okay, she's going back and forth between the two physically.
She is. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, today we had the flu clinic in town, so she did not go to the town hall, but most days she's splitting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So thank you for jumping in here.
Yeah, you're welcome. Have a good night.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. So that's your background as far as why we are where we are today and why what's being proposed is being proposed. Make total sense. Clear as it can be.
If anyone
So,
is interested, I did find the blueprint for public health excellence pretty easily, which is referenced in that Dr. Franzen report. It's a 116-page read if you want to go in deep, but
Yeah.
it is there.
Is there a Cliff Notes version?
They apparently the last 4 pages, or there's a 4-page section in the Appendix C that are supposed to be a nice summary of everything.
Okay, I'll take a look.
But yeah,
So we just don't know where the state's going for sure, but we do know they're going toward regionalization. And Dr. Fazen supports, if you read the report, he supports regionalization for some services. So it's not like he's saying don't do that either. He's supporting it. it's not clear exactly how we implement that and what's truly subject, what should be subject to it, what really would work if we shared, with Northborough or we shared with Westborough, whatever. So I still think there's a lot to be done as far as really coming through with a, concrete plan to regionalize. I forget who, Andrew and Tim was in front of us last year that basically said, regionalization will take years to truly figure it out. And maybe that's true as far as truly, getting an agreement and really understanding what we can do, what the towns need, and where we don't need full-time things, but we need some things. So I don't know. All right, so tonight was just to truly make sure you had all of the facts. So I hope that all of us or some of us can go hear Dr. Faison and ask questions next Thursday. But we got to vote before, we've got to take a vote to either support this. And if we don't support it, we need to basically determine what we do support, because we're going to have to explain then how this budget gets paid for to the town. They're not going to just, we can't just say we don't support it and leave them hanging.
So Kathy, are the only ones that we didn't vote on zoning and Board of Health?
Tonight,
Yeah.
we
For
didn't vote
IT.
on capital.
Kevin, okay.
That's an IT one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see.
Okay, so two components, one a little bit easier than the other.
Gotcha. Okay.
So
Okay.
quick question on at a town meeting for something like this Board of Health $99,000, would there typically be more information that the voters would see about how that money's being spent, or would they really just be voting on an amount and kind of what's in this article?
Well, we normally don't do this to begin with. Normally it's part of the overall town budget, every annual town meeting. So it would be, printed, and typically, if you go back to what happened in May, those budgets just flew through, boom, 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 boom. The only thing, there's a couple people that use it stand up, and when they see an extraordinary increase year over year, they ask why. And then it gets explained. And so they all just flew through this past year. So this one definitely would have gotten pulled if it had been proposed, because it was such a huge increase. This one would have taken a lot of explaining at town meeting, because we just don't have budget increases for a department that are this big as a general rule.
Hey, Adam, are you asking if town meeting has any control over the granular levels of the budget? Because we don't.
No, I was just curious more about, and so I'm totally new to all of this. So I was just curious what information you receive at town meeting above and beyond what's in these articles, as I'm seeing them, in print here on the warrant.
Yeah.
Get
so
a budget book.
Yeah, there's a budget book. Every department generally tends to print out at least a brochure or a report, but at the end of the day, they, whatever appropriation gets approved at town meeting, they spend it as they see fit.
Okay. Yep.
But let me add to that. Town meeting, anybody can stand up and basically request to reduce a budget. And that happened the previous year. So, we've had 2 COVID town meetings, right? Both outside at Neary. The first one, a gentleman who has been on advisory for many, many years, who is well-versed in town finances, didn't like the increase in the utility budget because it reflected a big increase because of the new public safety building. So that had been brought online, and the utilities were going to go up a lot. It's all utilities are in one budget for all town buildings. So he basically proposed an amendment to decrease what was printed in the warrant for that budget by $50,000, and it passed. And so we had to reduce the budget by $50,000, and we had to do a reserve fund transfer at the end of the year because of it, because it actually wasn't that much over the reduced budget, but it was over a little bit. So yeah, so anybody can stand up and propose to reduce a budget, and sometimes they do, and sometimes it gets supported. Sometimes advisory will recommend a smaller budget than a town department does, and the town will override what advisory recommends. So a lot can happen to the budget at town meeting, but this past one, it just went boom, 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 boom. And the only roadblock we went into the whole meeting was the article on the advisory committee changes.
Okay.
Here, Adam, let me just put this up. So if you can see this is like the budget book that comes out. So here's basically what it talks about, like the Board of Health.
Okay.
And so, employees and different things.
Got it. All right. Great. That's helpful.
And it's available a little bit ahead of time, so people can actually read it, but most people don't. So most people start reading stuff when they, I mean, there's a ton of handouts at town meeting on the table. So you just go boom, 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 pick them all up, and then people will start reading. But most people at town meeting haven't read a whole lot when they come there. So, and they can't read the budget book that fast. So they just basically look at the year-over-year increases, what they'll focus on, and then maybe ask for certain budgets to be held. So they read them all and they'll say, hold, hold, hold. And then we go back to those budgets as far as explaining whatever the questions are about them. So what we're doing on November 1st is rather unusual. I mean, it's focused on, one department budget. Okay, so that's where I thought I'd end the discussion there, unless anybody else has any questions. Feel free to call Tim, Andrew, or I during the week if something else pops up. But I just want this to kind of digest as far as what you think we should do, because we do have to take a position. And if we don't support this, then we're going to have to be ready to say what we do support, because the next question is going to be, well, then how are you going to pay for this budget? So if, we may have to say this is our plan as far as reserve fund. We want to try to maximize funding from other sources. And so our plan was to use reserve fund if that doesn't come to fruition.
Yeah, so Kathy, can you reach out to Carla and confirm that
Yes,
if we didn't approve this, we could use the last 2 months?
yes.
Okay.
And I'll find out too why town council doesn't think, if you do a budget by month and there's nothing, you've got the normal stuff in November and December, and then you got the bigger stuff the rest of the year, why you would consider that budgeted for November, December. So something's just not making sense as far as that piece of it goes. So we'll get to the bottom of it, and we definitely need to agree for that before town meeting. Okay, so let's move on. Let's now talk, we're going to do downtown initiative last, the big one. Let's talk about the two parts of the capital article. Let's do the easier one first, which is, if you recall, Jason Malinowski, who's chair of that committee, is asking that a $30,000 fund be established to allow for needed studies that we think may need to take place if we go forward with possibly closing a school and or some of the things that may happen to town buildings as a consequence of closing a school and opening up a school building for other town uses. $30,000 is not much money. It's not for a specific study. It's just a pot of money that can be drawn on if the time comes that we need to do that. We could do that with reserve fund. We've done that many times with reserve funds as far as funding studies that we didn't know about, and then something came up we needed to fund. So that could definitely be a reserve fund transfer, but again, it's only $30,000. And given what we just said about the Board of Health, we may not want to do that with reserve fund to leave our options open as far as the Board of Health budget.
Can't you?
I think the two choices are just let reserve fund do it and, don't support this or just support it.
Can't you envision certain people getting up and having a philosophical problem?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, I
Yes,
think they're going to end up talking about whether we're closer to school or not, which we're not ready to talk about. So I think it does open that up. So I think my preference, Tim, would be to just let the reserve fund do this when they actually have a study that they need. They've got a price. This is just a, highly educated guess, right? Or a guess as far as what they might need. So there's no study that's on the table that costs $30,000. So it's just a number. It's a placeholder. But yeah, I'm afraid that what's going to happen is that it's going to open up a can of worms and start talking about whether we're closing a school, which we know will be a hot topic. Anything to the schools is always a hot topic. So I'm hoping that's not what happens, but I think it very well could.
yeah. Okay.
So that would be my reason not to support it and just say, look, reserve fund, we'll fund this when time comes. There's still a little money left in an old article they can use first, eat that up. So I do believe we will spend some money on studies. That's a fact. If I had, based on where I think things may be going, I do believe that it is a realistic possibility that the recommendation will come to close one of the close either Neary or close Woodward, I think. And this is just my personal guess. And if that takes place, there will be studies done to figure out how to go forward. So there will be money needed for studies. So that's probably a fact. But the reserve fund could easily fund the 30,000.
I mean, it's not really going to be a debate, right?
No, it
I
wouldn't
mean,
be a debate at all if they did, if the reserve fund did it.
I mean, the school has already made their will known, right?
I think that they, these are all public meetings, right? I do believe that if people are tuned in and have heard what the conclusions are so far, I mean, there's already been a study that shows that we've got room to close school. There's another study that's been done that hasn't been disclosed yet. But if people are tuned in, my guess is they do think that's where this may be going.
So given it's highly likely, based on what Jason said last week, that they're going to need to do studies, we all agree they're highly likely to need to do studies. It's a small amount.
Yep.
What are thoughts on this way this is structured? I think I might have an issue with that as well. Just sort of having this little fund that then you go back and ask for approval once you have the study in mind. Why not just get the approval now? And you're going to need studies. How descriptive or specific do you have to be about the study and when it's going to run? But we know they're going to need that money.
Well, I think he thought it would sell better if he said, we will come back to the Board of Selectmen and make sure that they approve the specific study that we're
Yeah.
asking for. And that committee, Adam, is underneath the Board of Selectmen. It's a Board of Selectmen committee. And so it makes sense they'd go back to the Board of Selectmen and say, okay, now we do think we need to do X. So that makes sense to me. And I may be wrong. Maybe no one says a word about the studies that we're talking about at town meeting. It could be that it is kind of, it doesn't, but I just think someone's going to stand up and say, well,
Yeah.
can you talk about what we're studying here? I don't like the idea of closing a school. And then we get into this big debate that's way premature about doing that. So that's my preference. So my preference would be to let the reserve fund do this and not have to bring it up at town meeting. But I'm one person.
I think you leave it in, Kathy. I mean, I have trouble using a reserve fund for something that we know about right now.
Well,
we
if
have
we
an
didn't
opportunity to
have
run it.
if we didn't have the Board of Health there, then I'm hesitating to, Andrew, because of that also. You know, it's $190,000. If the Board of Health would take 100, and this is 30, that's a big chunk out of the reserve fund already. So that's the reason that I would want to keep it in the article and have town meeting, special town meeting approve it. So so I vote with you on that because of a different reason. I just.
And it's already printed, right? We would have to amend it to take it out.
So it's already
gonna be
there. It's already there. So you'd have to explain what you're taking about. So that's a good point too. It's already there. So you got to say something as far as why we're taking it out. Oh, we're just going to let the reserve fund approve it. So yeah, so we're probably, so I think you're right. It's probably just better off leaving it in and approving it at special town meeting. And hopefully it's a quick one. Anybody else?
I just don't think it's going to be a quick one.
It might not be.
I think, I mean, you're supposed to have a specific request for a specific amount that town meeting approves. You're not supposed to ask for a fairly random blanket amount and then go to the selectmen to approve it. That's going to put certain people's teeth on edge.
Well, that's my point, Tim, right? That
You're right, Adam.
the method for how this is being asked seems to me, and again, I'm new, so maybe this is the kind of thing that happens quite frequently, but it seems,
doesn't.
yeah, this seems out of the ordinary. And I would say, if you know you need it and you have a good idea of what you're going to need it for, just ask for it and get it now instead of having to go through this extra layer.
Somebody's gonna stand up and say that this is a transference of power from town meeting to the selectmen, and they're gonna not like it.
But don't the selectmen still have to sign certain contracts and approve certain things like that?
That may
I feel
be
like there's
true,
some
but they don't.
expenditures that they have to approve anyway.
That may be true, but they don't approve appropriations. That only town meeting can do that, and you're supposed to come to town meeting with a specific need, not a blanket request.
But
Yeah,
it's
they're
like
not given a pot of money and just say, okay, here's a pot of money, here's a vague description, and go do it. It's a small amount of money, but that won't matter to some people. It's the principle of it. So if we don't support it, we could see, we could explain why that it's not specific enough. We don't know what the amounts are and just leave it at that. And just say, when there is a real need and there's a real study that's being requested, we could use reserve fund. We could do that, and then see what the town thinks. But Tim's right. There's going to be a person or two or three that will stand up probably and have some issues with a blanket amount of money here, a pot of money.
We do it the same thing for the roads fund, and then that's to go through selectmen. I mean, it's not like it's unheard of.
Yeah, but the roads, that you're going to spend money on roads, and it's roads, right? And you just don't know exactly what you're going to spend.
Facilities maintenance article, that's a blanket 100,000.
Yeah, but you also know that there will be some issues with buildings too. They're so old. So I still think people might, but they may not, Andrew, maybe. I still think they might draw a distinction.
I mean, they approved the other $50,000 or whatever it was.
Yep. So what do you guys think? You want to vote tonight? You want to wait on this one?
Well, we have to vote on the article altogether, so let's wait till we talk about the servers.
Okay. Let's talk about the servers, and we'll come back to whether we want to vote tonight. Okay, and so this is where you need some more background as far as what happened last year. So I told you the story about we lost our IT person, had no IT person for 5 months. And during that 5 minutes, a whole lot of people got hacked, a lot of ransomware attacks took place on towns. We luckily did not have to write a big check, but a lot of towns did in the United States, as Tim Martell kept telling us about. So there was a lot of concern last year as far as our IT structure. So we spent time talking about where we should go at this point, and there was an agreement in the end that we should start moving things to the cloud more. It was safer. It's what people are doing. It is just the way to do things. John Butler, who is a pretty technologically savvy guy, came to us and was pretty insistent that's what we should do. So MTC agreed with that. Part of the problem, though, is Southborough can't completely go to the cloud. Some of the things that we do need to stay on a local server, including the software to run the public safety dispatch system, emergency system, et cetera. So we can't completely go to the cloud. That's a fact. But we thought the agreement was to basically start moving toward the cloud, the things that made sense. We're already using Office 365 for mail, et cetera. We've got OneDrive that we've got access to. So that was the agreement. There was $40,000 put into the budget to buy, I'm not sure, Andrew or Tim, maybe one server, maybe two servers. I don't know that it was ever clear, but there was a pot of money put in to replace aging servers. We apparently have 3 servers in Southborough, is what Jay has told us recently. So that was put into the warrant. And then there was a snafu. There was a Scrivener's error at the town meeting where that $40,000 didn't get included in the motion to pass the budget. It got left out. And so even if he didn't want more money, we'd still have to, they think, although Andrew Pfaff disagrees, that we've got to put that 40 back in, that it didn't get approved appropriately. So that's one thing that would probably be done anyway, if even if he didn't need more money. But instead of asking for 40, he's now asking for 85. So the 40 has grown to 85, and we don't understand why. So I'd asked Matt Probst to come tonight, but he didn't reply. So I'm going to try to make sure he's there next week, along with Jay, to really understand where the numbers are coming from. Jay has discussed this with MTC, but he didn't discuss the numbers. So therefore, MTC didn't have a chance to say, well, it was 40 at town meeting. Why is it 85 now? So we don't know why the 40 that was approved then now needs to be 85. It's obviously, I think he wants to replace all 3 servers at one time. Again, I don't know whether it was 1 or 2 in the 40, whether the 40 was a estimate. So I can't get from 40 to 85. That's one thing. Number 2, we don't think MTC has weighed in officially on this, because I'm not sure they've got all of the info they needed to do that. So we wanted a chance to bring both Jay and MTC together next Wednesday and see what they say as far as where we really are going as far as moving to the cloud. Are we still heading that way, or have we stopped for a while? Jay was talking in quite technical terms last Thursday, at least for part of it. So I'm just not sure whether we really are heading that way, that we really need to replace all 3 servers right now. Should we replace 1 and 2 and hang on to the 3rd one until more work gets done toward the cloud? So I can promise you this one's going to get brought up at town meeting if John Butler goes, if he sees $85,000 for new servers. So it will get discussed in quite detail at town meeting if he is there. I don't know if anybody else will bring it up, but he definitely will, because he's adamant that we really need to focus on the cloud. Tim, you want to? So Tim Martell is our advisory, and Andrew too. I don't want to shortchange Andrew, but Tim has been the lead on technological issues with the town. So Tim, what do you want to add to that?
I think for me, the real sticking point is the public safety piece and the argument that that has to be on-prem. At that point, I mean, 3 servers is a fairly standard arrangement for, for replication and business continuity. So
All right, so let's just let Jay and get Matt and Jay in the same room with us and let them say, yeah, we agree that the 3 is right and 85 is the right number.
Yeah, Tim, my take is if 85 is the right number, 3 servers is fine. If MTC is cool with it and Jay's cool with it and that makes sense, then I'm for it. My thing is, let's put the 40 back, and the other 45 should come out of his existing budget because he's got savings elsewhere already.
So Tim, we asked Brian Ballantyne about that, and he didn't like that idea. He said, so Andrew specifically said, we've got the second person budgeted from July 1st at $95,000, right? That person is not on board now. So we've got July, August, September, October. So that's a third of the year gone. November 1st, I'm assuming that position gets approved and then they start the hiring process, right? But he won't get hired on November 2nd. He or she won't be on November 2nd. So we're probably going to have at least 5 months of savings. Yeah. And if you multiply, 5 12s times 95, you've got the other 45 you need for the server. So just to be clear, the 40 is already built into the 3.19% year over year projected real estate tax increase. So putting the 40 in is not changing anything. All we're doing is putting in what we thought was there to begin with. So that's fine. But adding the 45 will increase the projected taxes. And we're going to start pushing toward 4% between the Board of Health, between this and the 30K for the consulting piece of it.
So what's the rationale from Brian?
He said that, let me just read it.
And then they also had another 4,000 for the ClearGov budget module for capital that we didn't use.
Yep,
and
that can come out too.
And then the original server price was 45,000. I don't remember that, Kathy, but that 5,000 of it was for licensing.
Yeah.
So they moved that into a separate line, and the 5,000, I think it's still in there. It's in the operational budget. And I think there's some licensing in the 85. So I'm assuming it's probably similar to the 5,000.
Yeah, so Tim, we just wanted to scrub the budget and see if they scrub the budget, they can't rearrange it in a way that they can pay for the additional cost of the servers with a revised budget. And they haven't, they clearly haven't done that from Brian's email.
I mean, it makes a lot of sense on the surface of it. I would like to hear the rationale other than holding that money as a buffer for year-end costs.
And the argument could be, remember that the way the budget worked, Jay didn't have much to do with it. He was too new. So MTC put it together. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. MTC put it together. And so they may still have some concerns over the budget itself, because we really didn't have anyone that was a town employee that was in place long enough to really scrub that budget. So, we picked up the previous guy's budget and scrub that, but it was being scrubbed by people who aren't employees day to day, all day long. So maybe we missed something. I don't know. So I think that's probably another concern too, but he didn't say that. That's just me saying this. So let me just get his email up here.
While you pull that up, do we have any insight into how are they doing on their budget currently? Obviously, we know of a few things expenditures they haven't incurred, but do we know if they're over in other areas that would lead us to think they're concerned about the end of year and going over?
No, but that's easy to get. And it's certainly probably it's what we should do.
How rigid are department budgets? Is it, to Eric's question, are line item budgets hard to move funds in between, or is it fairly?
So it's fairly easy. They did add added a policy that is it over $10,000, and any of the selectmen there can Chelsea has her hand up. Let me bring Chelsea over. I think she had the policy, so you can explain it to us.
You're talking about intra-department, right,
Yes.
Andrew? Not inter.
Not intra.
I'm Chelsea, if you could explain the line
Yeah.
item thing, right?
Yep. So last year, the selectmen approved a policy that anything that caused a individual line item to go over $5,000, a memo needs to go to the town accountant and the selectmen so that we're aware of it. And we do, the departments do try to cover it somewhere else in their budget, but we want to have an explanation as to why they went over in an individual line item. Because that makes it more difficult in a subsequent year to actually budget, right? Like we want to make sure that we're budgeting accurately, and so that we don't have overages in certain line items every year over and over, that we're budgeting accurately.
Okay.
Almost
And then
always budgets are prepared based on last year's. That's what we do. They start with last year, and then we tell them to do it one of two ways: flat, or keep the services the same, or keep the budget the same. So it's always dependent on what last year's budget was as far as where they start. Okay,
And then-
so let
then
me
Adam,
read.
overall budgets, we shift them at the end of the year, and I think it's selectmen and advisory have to approve them. Like moving from one, budget to
Inter-department
another.
ones.
Intra-department, yeah.
The big
Right.
exception is the schools. The schools have total authority. They get a big lump sum of money. We don't have anything to do with the line item, so they can move anything they want to with no. So the school committee is on its own as far as their overall budget. They come up with their budget. They can move anything they want to. So we have no authority over moving within that budget. Okay, so this is what Brian Ballantyne says as far as his suggestion to absorb some of the server cost with unspent payroll funds. He said that also I would not entertain. We do not know the rate at which any new hire will be appointed. And I want to get back to that because we actually do. And the year is only 1/4 over. It's actually a third over. The amount we are probably entertaining is small enough. It just makes sense to return any unspent funds if necessary at year end, rather than open the IT budget up again. So he's saying don't do it. And I don't think, if you take apart what he said, the year is a third over, it's going to be 5/12 over by the time they get anybody hired for sure. We do know the rate. The rate that's been approved, the second person, is $95,000, which is slightly less than what the director makes. I think he's like 105 or so. So we know it's not going to go above that, because they're not going to hire someone that makes more than Jay does. That makes no sense, right? So we do know the number. It could go lower, but it's not going to go above that.
And
So
Kathy, the highest band for that is 98.
Yeah, so that's it, right? That's what's in the warrant. So this warrant article puts a band around what you can pay this position. And so it's not going to go above 98. So we do know what the number is, the most it can be. So I think that's worth another discussion, don't you, Andrew and Tim? I just don't want us to end up with a 4% year-over-year increase, and that's where we're heading. The other thing I'm worried about, and I still don't have the answer to it, is we're still trying to finalize the 1/1/21 town valuations, commercial property and residential. And if there is a shift toward residential, which I think there's going to be, and Possibility agrees, he just doesn't think it's going to be big, then that's going to make that 3.19 even bigger too. So we're already pushing 4, probably even with that. And then with what the Board of Health wants to do, that's another quarter point right there. So we're going to be in the fours after this meeting, I think. And I think that's a lot for another COVID year where people are struggling and where, COLA increases with Social Security are nowhere near 4%. I know inflation is ramping up, but I still think that's a big year-over-year tax increase. So that's my diatribe. Okay. All right, so there's those two. So we're not going to vote on the two capitals tonight. We will wait till we meet with Jay and with MTC to try to understand where the numbers coming from as far as the servers go. And then in the meantime, one of us will, Andrew and I will get with Brian and really understand what the budget looks like for IT year to date and see if there's anything else going on that we should be concerned about. Everybody agree with that approach? Okay. All right. Okay, so that's 9. Number 10 is the downtown initiative. So you heard what was said last Thursday. This coming Monday is supposedly the final planning board public hearing. It's my understanding that the Economic Development Committee will be there, at least in part. Somebody's going to be there to discuss this. I don't know if the planning board is considering making the changes that Andrew Pfaff supported at last Thursday's meeting and that I think EDC would like to see. Now I say that, but our esteemed minute taker, Claire, has been involved in this all the way through. She's not on EDC, let me make that clear anymore, but she's been involved in this all the way through. And I know she has a different opinion as far as where she thinks this is going. And I'm sure she is planning on making some type of comment at town meeting as a citizen. So this is the one that's going, this is why we're having the town meeting is for this article. So I don't know where this ends up. I don't know what planning board is going to decide to do on Monday, if they are going to agree to loosen some of the restrictions or numbers that are in the article. Tim, I don't know what you think at this point, whether you have changed your mind as far as what you think. So I don't know. So why don't we start with Tim? And why don't you tell the group, Tim, tell the committee what you think of the article as it's printed today?
I think it's going to fail. Sorry, my video.
All right, that's blunt.
Yeah, I keep seeing and hearing people say that this is a housing plan, not a economic plan, and there's merit to that statement because I think Shopsy really unintentionally put a poison pill into this article, and I think it has to be removed.
Do you think if that got removed, that, I mean, remember this is a 2/3 vote, so it's a high bar to cross here because it's a zoning article. So you got to have 2/3 of whatever group shows up on November 1st vote for this. So Tim, do you think if Shopsy were to agree that it could be amended to remove that would pave the way for it?
I think it would make it a lot cleaner, clearer. And then we could actually focus. I mean, we need to have a town meeting debate that focuses on the merits of mixed use and nothing else, right? The moment people start talking about, oh, no, it's a housing plan, I mean, it's dead.
Tim, what would you amend it? I mean, I think a multifamily should be allowed by special permit. I mean, there's multifamily houses down there now, but 2-family, 3, 4-family?
I would just remove the bullet.
I mean, it's multifamily, or you can do them today.
You're talking about the business village zoning, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm not proposing changing anything in the current business village, but I mean, I thought I was pretty clear with the selectmen that I really felt that this article should have been really small, right? We don't need to take the village, the business village verbiage and duplicate it in the downtown district. It doesn't make sense. Just you know, we're creating a downtown district for the sole purpose of mixed use. Put that in, keep it really small and go. Anything else is just a distraction and a source of failure.
So Tim, do you think you're going to support the article?
As written, no, not at all. And to be honest, I think I've also, I mean, you know, some people on the board might not be aware of this, but from the very beginning, Kathy, I think I've been very blunt that I think the consultant who was hired to start this process has been a giant failure. And I think that that's the big, I think this started off on the wrong foot. I think we had a very opinionated consultant who did not create a bylaw that the town wanted. I think the consultant decided to push the consultant's opinion, and our starting point is a failure point because of that. And I think that we really need to trim the fat on this and look at what, I mean, every board feels the same way, whether it's, you know, planning, EDC, selectmen, us. Mixed use is viewed as a good thing. So let's focus on that. Why are we focusing on all these things that the expert consultant said we should be focusing on? Because they put it in there. It doesn't make any sense to me. They should have been fired a long time ago.
So for those that haven't gone to many town meetings, zoning articles just give us more trouble than any other type of article. We've just had a lot of trouble with making appropriate zoning changes for a long time. And again, we don't know who's going to come to this meeting. We don't know what the composition is going to be. It won't be, I don't think, a normal town meeting group. So the people that come may have strong feelings one way or another on this one article. And I don't know who they are. So I don't know what is going to get said on that Monday night. And no matter what, even if planning board doesn't change their opinion on what is written, that's what they supported, that's what they want. They don't want to make any changes. Then I believe EDC is probably, or someone is going to propose amendments. So I think it's going to be a quite long discussion, and it's probably going to be confusing to a lot of people. And then it's my understanding, if it fails, Andrew, Tim, help me here, if it fails, that unless the planning board itself brings it back or agrees to bring it back, then you can't bring it up again for, I've heard 2 years, and then I've heard 3 years. So if it doesn't get approved, there's a chance it's not going to get approved for a long time.
Yeah, I don't know what the full, I mean, I think the planning board has to bring it back for, in other words, a 3-year period, but I don't know if they could do something like adjust the map for one parcel and then bring it back or something like that. As a different name or something, but let's not dwell on that.
What's currently in the zoning law for multifamily dwelling?
So today, multifamily is only permitted as special permit. And it's multifamily dwellings as part of a major residential development, which means 8 or more, I believe. And multifamily housing for elderly owned by public or a nonprofit community organizations allowed by special permit. You can, I think, convert a single family to a two-family if it's been in existence for a period of time, but I think that's the only other one.
Okay, so this is entirely new, this C7.
Yes.
It's new, yeah. It takes away the major residential development part, which is
Right.
what I was suggesting, either adding that back, which was the same zoning it's had for however long, right? And just say it has to be part of a major residential development. Or you just say multifamily and cap it at, 2 units, 3 units.
Right.
At the end of the day, people are still going to ask you, if this is all about mixed use, why are we allowing multifamilies?
Because it is today. I mean, it's not about just mixed use. It's about the downtown. It's about a lot of things.
We have exactly, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, we have 3 villages. And these are the only places where mixed use could be targeted. And yet multi-families can go pretty much anywhere. So why in the world are we taking a very small area of town where we could have mixed use and using multifamily? It's an improper use of the zone.
again, if that zoning, that area has been zoned to allow for multifamily for the longest time. And there hasn't been a giant major residential development putting in 8 units of multifamily ever.
Because it has to go through the
Special
major
permit,
residential development.
which is special permit. Planning board.
It's not just a function of a special permit. It's not easy to get a major residential development through the planning board. It's a difficult process. It's expensive. And it also requires you to dedicate one of your units to be affordable housing, which is an economic loss.
Which now they have to do, even if it's a 4 unit, not even an 8. So it's more restrictive now. I mean, I'm fine with putting it back as it needs to be part of major residential development, which is exactly what it was before.
Well, I mean, the districts are overlaid, right?
But this
Business village.
this supersedes the other zoning.
I guess if you have an area of the downtown district that's overlaid with the business village, why do we need to duplicate what's already in the business village?
Because I think it replaces for those parcels, whatever the zoning is.
I don't believe it replaces. The zoning map does not show that the business village has disappeared. It's an overlay.
Yeah, that overlays. That's the new, I mean, otherwise we wouldn't be able to do any of the stuff the new one does.
The downtown district overlays this, is what you're saying, Tim, right?
Yes. So if you have X, Y, and Z in the business village and the downtown district is overlaying that, then you don't need to replicate X, Y, and Z in the downtown district. It's just a needless complication.
Because it's already there.
Yes,
Won't this replace that?
That's what
It
I
will
thought
not.
of this.
Yeah, where there's an overlap, won't this replace it?
It will not replace it, I don't believe. That's not how overlays work.
Andrew, are you going to support the article as written?
No,
Okay, so there's 2 no's. Marcy, I know you've been following this closely. Do you know what you want to do at this point?
So, I mean, there's really a lot that could be said. I think that I really align closely with Tim, and I've watched your advisory meetings before I became a member, and Tim's made some great points over the course of time. Some of those haven't been mentioned recently, but one of them is the component of St. Mark's and how are we going to, if there's limited real estate in downtown, with this plan, what would be to prevent, St. Mark's from buying up the land and using that as housing, and we don't have very much business development if that were to happen. Anyway,
And
back to
no
kind of the point-
taxes at that point either.
Correct. So I guess I would just say tonight it's still difficult to kind of figure out what we would exactly be voting on since it hasn't been finalized. I would not be supportive of reverting back to the EDC plan at all. I would be in favor, most likely, of the planning board changes and supporting that. But I do have a lot of reservations, fundamentally, with the vision of this whole project. And I couldn't agree more with Tim on the consultant and kind of the consensus building, the data that's I have yet to find. I just don't see that it's been very well thought out. So I have a lot of reservations, although I fully believe that we do need something downtown. But whether or not this is the right plan, I'm not convinced.
Marcy, what about, I mean, obviously the planning board was a little bit further. What about the changes that I proposed, bringing it just a little bit back? The 0.35, the 0.40 of toe to 0.50, and the 3 units to 4. So not back to the EDC reversion, but just a tick back in the other direction.
I guess I would see like what the planning board says. I definitely believe that that even the selectmen have made a great point with the 4 units versus 3 and having some oversight, because it does kick off the affordable housing component. So I think for me, the jury's still out on that. I want to hear what the Board of Selectmen and planning, come up with, particularly if EDC calls in and they have a lively discussion and debate. I might have a different opinion later. But
And I don't want
appreciate,
everybody to
Andrew,
leave
you
thinking the
raising
board of
that.
selectmen is in lockstep here. There's some disagreement on the board too, as far as what to do here. So it's not.
I appreciate your comments, Andrew. I appreciate the thought behind that, and I think I would just like to hear what the planning board says about that and
Yeah,
go from
no,
there.
I would agree.
But does anyone disagree with if we go to town meeting and advisory has a split vote? Let's say it does support it, but let's say it's 3-4. And let's say the board of selectmen is I don't know 3-2 or 4-1, and planning board might be 5-0 if what they have said sticks, and then EDC stands up and basically says, no, we spent, 2 years doing this and we did this, we did that. And this is what's wrong. I just think you end up, it's just going to devolve into this discussion that's not going to have a resolution. And I don't see how you get a 2/3 vote with that kind of discussion.
Well, Kathy, I do have a question here, comment as well, because I feel like this was brought up on the joint meeting last week, but I don't know if we ever got a clear resolution regarding the potential 2-3 year waiting period of really bringing this back up. What are the implications if this is simply pulled at the start, other than the fact that the special town meeting is ultimately about this? I get that, but like,
Yes, have a way, and that could happen. If it's pulled, then you don't have that rule. You can bring it back at the next town meeting.
okay, because I think I'll just quickly, without dragging on here, my quick answer is I don't support this as is. I'm fairly in line with the changes that Andrew and we all sort of discussed last time around, but I also do want to hear the commentary next week. But I personally, I'll just say I don't support this as is, as written in the warrant, and I am very supportive of changes downtown, as I think everyone has said and agrees. It feels just like this is rushed. It feels like we all want something, and so we're all willing to compromise without getting something that's going to get it done. And I think, to your point, it's just going to become a darn mess, right? At town meeting, and we're going to be there all night shouting about it. And at the end of the day, we are not going to get an outcome that anybody's happy with if it just gets shot down and we have to wait 2 to 3 years in theory, right? So again, if I think the secret sauce here from what I heard last week was that if, advisory, EDC, planning, and select all come together with a preset group of amendments that can be printed out ahead of time and can be sort of the first thing brought to the floor regarding to this and saying, hey, we've further public input. This is really what we're moving forward. And it's easy to understand, digestible. That's something I would get my head around. But I think, again, I'm not super confident that's going to happen. And regardless of that, I don't support this warrant as written. So I'll stop rambling, but I'd be ultimately more in favor of pulling it and giving everybody more time to get to something we want. But.
All right, so Tim, Andrew thinks that this is not an overlay. So what we've heard between Tim and Andrew are two quite different things tonight. So even on advisory, there is a real difference of opinion between those two gentlemen. And if every group that weighs in here has that same kind of differences, I just don't see how this gets passed.
I don't think Tim and I are that far off. We don't think that big giant apartment buildings should go downtown.
Okay. Yay.
I think it's just, I used to own a 2-family. I think a 2-family could go in downtown or a 3-family, but 8-family,
I guess
think
it
that's a little big.
depends,
Yeah.
right? I mean, if you had a 2-family and the first floor was a nice business and the top 2 or 3 floors were multifamily, that would be great.
That would be mixed
yeah.
use.
All right, I really hate to ask this question with a public audience, but I'm going to do it. Remember, I'm from the South. We don't have 2 families and 3 families. It's a concept in the Northeast, right? As far as, because you go vertical, right? You don't do that in the South. We don't have this. So I had to get used to that language up here. Okay, so if we have let's say on the Peter Bemis lot, he builds, let's just go back to what he was going to build, right? And let's say that he puts 3 apartments and puts, nice commercial space, whatever. Okay, what's the difference between 3 separate apartments and a 3-family?
So because there's commercial space, it's mixed use. It's 2 uses. So if he took that building instead of commercial on the first floor and 4 apartments above, it was, say, 6 apartments and it was just an apartment building, that would be a multifamily. So multifamily sole purpose is residential, not mixed use residential and commercial.
Okay, so if it's mixed use, you wouldn't call it multifamily,
Correct.
even though it's got room for 3 apartments in it.
Correct.
Okay, so that would not be a 3-family.
Correct.
Okay, all right. I'm just trying to make sure I really get the distinction that you're talking about here. Okay, so, all right, I think we wait until Monday, right? I'm going to post a meeting tomorrow for Monday. So if we end up with a quorum at that meeting and we end up deliberating or debating upon the meeting, will be safe as far as open meeting law. So I will post it just in case. And so those that want to attend, please do, and then we'll see where it goes, but it should be an interesting meeting. I did get an email from Julie Connolly of EDC saying she appreciated the discussion that we had last Thursday. So the plan was to have EDC come next Wednesday too, and basically let us make sure we understand where they are, but we may not need that. Monday, maybe everything gets resolved. Maybe EDC and planning board come together as far as what they agree that they will amend the article to do. And Claire, for the record, I read your email. I didn't look at the attachments. I didn't have time to when it came in tonight, but I will.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
Feel free to pass it.
I know you've got a lot to say here. Claire doesn't think it's appropriate to say what she feels because she's also the minute taker. So she's going to wait to town meeting to basically express her viewpoint.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. All right. Any further discussion as far as the downtown initiative warrant article?
Kathy, just what about the map? We never really covered the map, but does anybody have any concerns about the map? I mean, I think the split lots going back and not really improving anybody's lots, but keeping it the same zoning, it makes a lot of sense.
So you want to explain to everybody what you're talking about? I know Marcy knows. Explain what you mean by that in case
So
it's not.
in downtown, there are like 6 or 7, I don't remember how many, lots that are partially in the business village district and partially in a different zoning, which is funny. And so basically the map would carve those properties out so that they're only the properties that are in the downtown district are the ones that are fully in the downtown district. There's no overlap with another zoning district. Those other properties will still have their old business village district zoning, so we're not taking anything away from those properties. They're just not included in the new one. I think it makes a lot of sense.
And that was a big issue with people on that own those lots, as far as that goes. So this, I think that the new map that is more restrictive has satisfied those concerns from what I can tell.
I was trying to find the map. Is that available somewhere?
I think it's on the My Southborough page. I'm sure it's on some town meeting as well, but.
Okay.
It'd be on the southboroughtown.com website.
Yeah.
Okay.
Planning
I'll look
board
for it there.
department.
Yeah, I was looking through all the documents and emails, but I'll look at the My Southborough page.
And it's also on the planning board meeting packets from the recent past, where it was
Okay, thank
voted
you.
on.
Right. Kathy,
Yep.
are we good?
You good?
I wasn't sure if anybody wanted to talk about the map or everybody's okay with
I
it.
thought you were going to show the map. That's what I was waiting for.
I don't think I have it here.
It's okay. I can.
No, it sounds like it's readily available.
Oh, here, I got it here.
I'll find it.
Let me share it. Or at least so this is like, here's Lattisquama with some split lots that aren't included in the light pink. Same with over here on Boston Road. So these ones will stay in the business village and these ones will be in the new downtown district.
Light pink is in the new and dark pink stays where it is?
Correct.
Okay.
Clarification that this is not an overlap. that it's, that these zoning districts are either or and not
Correct.
both.
Correct. Yeah, I was just reading the warrant, Tim, and it said like we'll add a new district 12, number 12, as opposed to oh, no, really.
Even that map, the color scheme did not make it clear if it was an overlap or not.
I think it's just identifying the boundaries of what the district is. I mean, they should pick a better color, not pink and light pink, but pick something completely different.
So this meeting starts at 7. They won't start it till they've got a quorum. The quorum is 100 people, I think. And even at a regular meeting, sometimes it takes a while to get the quorum seated. So let's say we start at 7:30. They have to end by 11 unless the hall approves going beyond 11. I think 1 through 9 aren't going to take unless I don't know what the Board of Health is going to take. So I don't think 1 through 9 are going to take a long time. So let's say they take 2 hours. So that's 9:30 before we start on this one. I don't think there's plans to have a second night. Have you guys heard anything else? So I guess they assume we're going to get started on this one and they'll just keep going until they'll get the hall to approve to keep going. But the problem is it's a Monday night. In the past, they have provided childcare services at Trotter. I don't think they're going to do that this year because of COVID. So I don't know who's going to come. It's going to be people probably who don't have young kids at home. It will be people specifically interested in this, and I'm not sure, maybe people who live around there. I don't know. So I just don't know who we're going to have at this meeting.
People with strong opinions.
Yeah, we got a baby.
Well, we always get those. There's a few of those that always come. So yes,
It might
those.
be a higher percentage.
Yeah. But even older people are going to be concerned about. Okay, thanks, Sam. So Sam is reminding me of the rules that if we start the article, which I think we will before 11, you just keep going. You don't even have to you don't even have to have the audience approve it. So he's saying that we can keep going if we started, which I think we will. So. But with COVID, sitting there with people, I don't know who's going to want to come. I really don't. So it's going to be an interesting group, I think. We will see. All right. So I don't think we can go much further. So I think the planning board starts at 7 o'clock AP.
Not sure.
I just double checked 7 p.m. on Monday.
7 p.m. Okay, so I'm going to post it right now. I'm going to send it over right now so I don't forget it because it's got to go in by tomorrow. I'm going to do the 48-hour thing so that we've got a right to all be there and participate if there's any reason for us to, but at least we can be there and legally be there if you want to do Zoom versus YouTube. Okay. All right. Okay. So I think that is it for the night. As far as schedule goes, we're definitely meeting next Wednesday. At 7:30. The following Wednesday, I can't meet. I've got a school committee meeting. So if we meet the following week, can everybody meet on Tuesday instead of Wednesday, which would be the 26th? We may not need it. I'm hoping we don't, but if we do, does that work?
Yep.
Does it not work? Does it work? Does it not?
I'm sorry,
work?
what date was that?
26th, so it's a Tuesday, Tim. I just can't do the 27th.
Yeah, Tuesdays are better for me.
They are better. All right, so that's going to be our backup date if for some reason we can't get everything done next Wednesday, but I think we will, or at least as much as we can. And it always says at town meeting as far as our position, so we could still wait and get closer to town meeting and see if anything else pops up, but we should try to vote to the extent we can next Wednesday.
You can always do at town meeting, which we've done.
Well, we've already done that, so that's done, but we still try to vote before town meeting, so we know we've taken our position. See, in the past, they put up a screen and say, here's our position, this is how we vote. We can't do that at this meeting. There's no screen. So we will have to make it clear what our positions are, but we'll get it done. All right, anything else anybody wants to discuss before I ask for public comment? Okay, so any public comment? Okay, seeing none. So we'll meet again next Wednesday at 7:30. we'll have the meeting posted for Monday with the planning board. So if we're going to go to that, that's fine. If we're all there, that'll be fine. And then we'll stay in touch in between with things that need to be passed back and forth. All right. So Andrew, you want to adjourn us?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Eric? Okay. Adam? Okay. Adam second, Claire.
I'll give
All right.
Eric a break.
Absolutely. Roll call vote. Eric?
Hi.
Cook is aye. Marcy?
Aye.
Adam?
Hi.
AP?
Aye.
Tim?
I.
All right, 6-0. All right. Thank you, everybody. Claire, it's 9:38.
Thank you very much. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Good night.